It started as an ordinary day, just like any other. I was driving home from work, lost in my thoughts, with my favorite song playing softly on the radio. The road ahead was clear, the air crisp with the late afternoon chill. Everything about the day felt routine, predictable. Nothing out of the ordinary. I was even thinking about what I'd have for dinner that night and planning the next day's errands. But in life, things can change in an instant. One moment, I was at peace, and the next, I heard the sharp screech of tires. Before I could even react, a truck barreled into my lane, coming straight toward me. The impact was deafening, a cacophony of shattering glass and crumpling metal. My body jolted violently, and pain shot through me before everything went black. It was the kind of darkness that wasn't just the absence of light. It felt infinite and heavy, like the world had completely slipped away. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't in a hospital bed like I'd expected. I wasn't surrounded by doctors or loved ones, and there were no flashing machines monitoring my vitals. Instead, I found myself standing in a place that was unlike anything I'd ever imagined. The air seemed alive with energy, and the light that filled the space wasn't harsh or artificial. It was soft, warm, and indescribably pure. The colors around me were vivid in a way I'd never seen before, and the peace I felt was so overwhelming that I began to weep. Deep down, I knew I wasn't on earth anymore. I was in heaven. As I stood there, trying to take it all in, a figure approached me from the distance. At first, I could barely make him out through the brilliance of the light. But as he drew closer, my heart recognized him before my mind could process it. It was Jesus. His presence was so full of love and compassion that I felt my knees go weak. There was no fear, no sense of unworthiness, just a profound sense of being completely known and yet completely loved. Jesus smiled at me warmly, and when he spoke, his voice was both powerful and gentle, like a melody that resonated deep in my soul. "Come with me," he said. "We have much to discuss." We began walking together through what seemed like a garden, but it wasn't like any garden I'd ever seen. The flowers shimmered, the trees seemed to hum with life, and every step felt like it was filled with purpose. As we walked, he gestured, and suddenly, my life began to unfold before me. It was like watching a movie, but this wasn't just about seeing. It was about feeling. I could feel every joy I'd ever experienced, every sorrow, every regret. It was overwhelming, yet somehow I felt safe knowing he was right beside me. We stopped at a particular moment in my life that caught me off guard. It was a Sunday morning, and I was sitting in church, reaching into my wallet to place my tithe into the offering plate. I stared at the scene, confused as to why this moment was significant enough to show. It felt so ordinary. Surely, there were more important things to highlight from my life. I turned to Jesus, searching his face for answers. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked hesitantly. His gaze met mine, full of understanding. "Because this is a part of your journey that you need to understand," he said. "Tithing is something you, and many others, have misunderstood." A wave of guilt washed over me. I remembered all the times I had given my tithe out of a sense of obligation or duty, sometimes even begrudgingly. I had worried about whether I was giving enough or whether it would count in God's eyes. I lowered my head and whispered, "Was I doing it wrong? Was it not enough?" Jesus chuckled softly, a sound that carried no hint of condemnation. "It's not about the amount," he said gently. "It's not even about the act itself. Tithing was never meant to be a transaction between you and God. It was meant to reflect your heart." His words pierced through me. I stood there, stunned, as he continued. "Tithing isn't just about money. It's about surrender. It's about giving your time, your love, your compassion, and your trust. When you give out of love and faith, it becomes an act of worship. But when it's done out of obligation, fear, or pride, it loses its true meaning." He waved his hand again, and more scenes from my life appeared. Moments where I had given freely and joyfully, and others where I had held back, worried about my own needs. In every scene, I felt the weight of my motivations. Some moments felt light and filled with joy, while others felt heavy with selfishness or fear. I looked at Jesus, tears streaming down my face. "But what about the church?" I asked. I thought tithing was about supporting the church and its work. He nodded. Wes, the church needs resources to fulfill its mission. But remember this, the church isn't a building or an institution. It's the people. Your giving should come from a heart that longs to see others blessed and cared for, not from a sense of religious duty. When you give out of love, you're partnering with me to bring hope and healing to the world. Then he said something that completely changed the way I understood not just tithing, but life itself. Tithing isn't about what you give to God. It's about what you allow God to do through you. It's about surrendering everything, your finances, your time, your talents, so that others can experience my love through you. The word sank deep into my heart. For so long, I had seen tithing as something I had to do, a box to check on my spiritual to-do list. But now I understood it was an invitation to live generously and reflect God's heart in every part of my life. Before I could ask more questions, Jesus placed his hand on my shoulder and smiled. Your time here isn't over yet. There's more for you to do back on earth. But live what you've learned. Let it transform you. And just like that, I woke up in a hospital bed. The harsh fluorescent lights above me were a stark contrast to the brilliance of heaven, but I felt a deep peace in my heart. My body ached, and I could feel the bandages wrapped around me, but I knew I had been given a second chance. In the days that followed, I couldn't stop thinking about what Jesus had said. I began to reevaluate everything, how I spent my time, how I treated others, how I gave. I no longer saw tithing as a duty, but as an opportunity to trust God and reflect His love to the world. I started looking for ways to give not just money, but also my time and attention. I volunteered more at my church, spent time mentoring young people, and looked for opportunities to bless those in need. It wasn't about earning God's favor. It was about sharing His love. Now, I share this story with you, not to tell you what to do, but to encourage you to seek God's heart in everything you give. Tithing isn't what we think. It's not a transaction or a rule to follow. It's a way of living, a reflection of trust and love. And when we give from the heart, God uses it in ways we can't even imagine. This experience completely changed the way I see tithing, giving, and trusting God. It's not about rules or obligation. It's about surrender, faith, and love. I pray that this message has touched your heart and given you a new perspective on what it truly means to give. If this story spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that Malachi button. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. And subscribe to the channel for more powerful testimonies and faith-filled content. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new video. Let's continue seeking God's heart together. Thank you for watching, and God bless you.